Why do all of us need to be gluten-free? Because we fear death. We're afraid the gluten is going to kill us. Like, are you aware of what
Sorry,
97
that's
years?
going to be the title of the podcast.
Oh, it's totally getting down to the brass tacks of the gluten-free movement. But do you know what 97 years of low-grade intestinal inflammation will do to you? It can eventually kill you. All kidding aside, I know gluten intolerance.
In this episode, we have the pleasure of getting acquainted with JP Sears. If you don't already know who JP is, he's well known for his hilarious ultra-spiritual series of videos that satirize a range of topics like veganism, gluten-free ads, and New Age beliefs. I don't think anyone's safe. On the business end of things, JP describes himself as an emotional healing coach, international teacher, world traveler, and curious student of life. This episode was a lot of fun to make, and you'll get to see JP take over the show, apologize to the nation of Costa Rica for his insensitivity, and tell us why he stayed indoors for 4 days following death threats. He also deftly explains the difference between a warrior and a sociopath. If you don't want to miss any episodes, then please sign up for our newsletter at deathhangout.com or click on the button on screen. Now let's head into our JP episode, Gluten-Free Death.
Okay. So JP, have you died before? We haven't asked that question. I thought I'd just throw it in there.
Yeah, let's not make assumptions that I'm actually living just because we're having this conversation. So at the literal level, in this lifetime, I haven't died before that I'm aware of. At a metaphoric level, have I died? I would say yes, I think all of us have. I've carried many senses of self about like who I am. Here's my self-identity. And then that dies. So something bigger and more true can be born. So yeah, man, I have died, and I guess I'm in the afterlife of my false self in a metaphoric way.
How does it look like, this afterlife, please? Because some people just describe this as like this magnificent thing. So imagine that you're just encountering that.
Yeah, have you ever seen the TV show Seinfeld? It looks like the inside of his apartment. There's always a Superman character hidden somewhere in the afterlife, like usually on an obscure shelf you wouldn't really notice. So, it's nice, but, it could be better.
I cannot wait to be there, man, to join you in this afterlife. If you have a room for me, please.
I was going to say, if it's the size of an apartment, I think it's going to get crowded fairly quickly.
Yeah. I have a theory of mine who, like humorous people, like comedians, have... sort of a dark side as well. They are also, this yin and yang or shadows. So I guess maybe, when I invited you, I wanted just to ask you, do you have any relationship with death yourself? Is this how death living in your life? It's a poor question, I guess.
Yeah, well, I personally, I love the question. And do I have a relationship with death? I mean, in the sense that like all people do, like we're connected to it, like welcome to a part of your life. It's called death. We spend most of our time pretending it's not there. So do I have a relationship with it? Yes. Do I have a very conscious relationship with it? No, it's not really an ongoing theme. I guess that's my way of saying I'm one of these people that spends most of my time in denial of it. Thus, I probably fear it because I'm in denial of it, and I'm probably in denial of it because I fear it. But what I do have much more of a conscious relationship to is the darkness that you mentioned, which I think death is a part of the darkness. Anything we keep in the shadows is what I consider the darkness of life. Not necessarily just bad stuff. I think a lot of us, our gifts and our brilliance are in our shadows. So it's in the darkness. We're just unaware of it. So a lot of my comedy certainly comes from my pain. I mean, if you're looking at a good comedian, you're looking at someone who's been to hell and back. And welcome to the human condition. My opinion is we all have. But a comedian is you're hearing out loud them processing and sort of like digesting their dark experiences. And I think sometimes when they're processing their dark experiences, they're processing it in a way that either takes them deeper into themselves, sort of like a vulnerable direction that says, let's go into the dark more. Kind of like the courageous warrior, I would call that like a very healing direction. Or the comedian might be processing it in a way where they're using their comedy to try to escape their darkness. I think it can be either, maybe different times or different situations for even the same comedian, but I think we all know of different comedians, actors, musicians who have battled with addiction. Some have died of addiction. Some have died of suicide, where we realize, okay, their darkness won. And I would dare say those are the extreme cases where we can realize they were using their comedy to try and escape their darkness. And their comedy wasn't enough to escape their darkness, so they hit the eject button via suicide or an overdose. When I was, and I'm going to talk about myself for the next 3.5 hours. Yeah, obviously. As I bring a smooth sense of closure to my thought that I'm rolling on, when I was a kid, and certainly like the first phase of my adulthood, my comedy, which wasn't expressed in a professional front, just more in my personal life, it was always geared around escaping my pain. Let me escape my sense of insignificance inside, so that darkness, so I can pretend it's not there, and I'll escape that by making other people laugh so that I can have the temporary gratification that I'm significant to them. Look, I made them laugh. I matter to them. I'm significant. And wow, it's been 3 minutes. I need to make them laugh again because now I'm bumping up against the insignificance, my own darkness again. So now when I hope my perception is, and I hope it's true, that now my use of comedy is predominantly to help me embrace my pain in a vulnerable way that actually helps it heal, connect to it rather than escaping it. And aside from the entertainment value of my comedy, I certainly hope that it can be a language of delivery for deeper messages to kind of penetrate the minds of people who watch what I do, so that they can become ultimately more connected to themselves and therefore not just their light, but also their darkness, because it's all us.
I think that's just what you said about pain. It's exactly the same thing. That if you replaced when you said pain with death, it's the same thing. It's the same journey. It's all part of the same piece. It's it's all part of us, and we can't run away from any part of ourselves. So I think, as you said, the embracing it is where, if you like, that's where any growth is going to come from. It's that's where any release or any healing comes from, is accepting it as part of the one journey, if you like.
Yeah, I love that. I do. I personally believe in order to fully embrace death, we need to actually be an active participant living our life. Otherwise, it's like here we are, we've been surviving, going through the motions, being who we think we're supposed to be in order to be pacified with this junk food called other people's approval, which means like some of us will go decades, some of us like on our deathbed are really coming to terms with, I haven't lived my life.
Yeah.
I've been living as who I think I was supposed to be. So I've made the purpose of my life to be someone else. But I think when we can, still be alive and become an active risk taker in life, where we risk discovering ourselves and we risk unapologetically then being ourselves and then discovering ourselves to a deeper degree, I don't think we have to fear death as much. Because it's like we've lived life. We don't have to be as afraid that this thing called life is taken away from me. If we're a starving person and we haven't eaten all the food that's just been put on the table in front of us, we'll be kind of anxious. But guess what? If we eat the meal, now we don't have to fear the plates being taken away. We don't have to fear death if we've eaten the meal of life. Or that is, we may not have to be phobic of death as much.
Yeah.
Depends what you eat as well. Again, depends. As
So
French,
I'm talking gluten-free, organic,
yeah.
non-GMO.
Can we put this as a gluten-free episode of the Death Hangout for this episode?
Why do all of us need to be gluten-free? Because we fear death. We're afraid the gluten is going to kill us. Like, are you aware of what 97
that's going to be the title of the podcast.
Oh, it's totally getting down to the brass tacks of the gluten-free movement. But do you know what 97 years of low-grade intestinal inflammation will do to you? It can eventually kill you. All kidding aside, I know gluten intolerance is a condition. I've got it myself. But man, what if gluten intolerance is all like a fear of death? And honestly, like on a somewhat serious note, jumping off that, there's a lot of people in the health world who are all about longevity.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to be 180 years old. And it's like, cool, I get that. That can sell books, that can sell attention. And at the bottom of that, it's like you can translate the people who want to live forever or like double the lifespan. It's like, do you actually want to double the lifespan, or are you just coming from a fear-based mindset of trying to avoid the thing that you're afraid of most? And then you're disguising it as something that sounds so altruistic that it's a trump card that we won't question why you're pursuing this longevity, because it sounds so altruistic, so we don't question it. But what if we get past that potential illusion and say, like, do you actually just fear death? Is that why you're so proactive about longevity? I don't know.
There was actually one candidate in your beautiful country who ran for president, and he was promoting to find a cure for death. So I don't remember the guy. But he was like, he has a camping car, and he was saying, let's cure death. And you have very serious people like scientists, Aubrey de Grey, or I don't remember the guy, and they're trying to find a cure on death. Even Google have something about that, like try to find a cure for death. So that's a good question, actually, the fear of death. And I had this question for you because you said it. Do you fear death, JP, yourself? Do you fear it?
It is hilarious you're asking me that right now. It really is. So here's the deal. If you asked me that a week and a half ago, I'd probably say, like, no, I don't feel afraid of death.
Yeah.
But I've been getting death threats this week.
No.
And
what?
Lo and behold, it triggers a primal fear in me.
Wow.
Just a quick backstory on that. I'm in Costa Rica right now. I have been for a few weeks, and I'll be here another month or so. And I made a video about Costa Rica, released it last week. One of the things I found out is the sense of humor of Costa Rica is different than my sense of humor. I was very insensitive to understanding how the Costa Rican people would take my video. So I own up to that. It was insensitive of me, and so apologize that people have been, really hurt and felt disrespected. That wasn't my intention. But nonetheless, all those disclaimers aside, when I was realizing there was something going on with this video, which I then deleted, put out an apology video, but I was getting harassed in the street.
Wow.
And on a few different occasions, and then my assistant is messaging me on the phone with me, like there's legitimate death threats coming in. So, like, honestly, I can, aside from like feeling a heavy heart and it's like so sorry, like, wow, not everybody, but a lot of people have been hurt by the video. There's also like this primal fear that comes up, like, wow, I am afraid of death.
But I think that's in a weird sort of way, it's like you have to, acknowledging that you're scared of it in the first place. It sounds corny. It's like admitting you've got a problem thing is the first step. But it is. It's like if it's acknowledging that it scares us before we can even look at what it is. It's because
for sure.
It's most people say, oh, I don't even think about it, or it's morbid to think about it. It's so I don't want to think about the fact that I'm scared of it. It's there's a denial of the denial, and there's a denial of the fear, and it's just
for sure. And to me, what you're describing, Keith, it's like if we truly are afraid of death, but we're in denial of it, that means like we fear our own fear of death. So it's like we're two layers into the fear. And I do believe anytime we have an emotional charge about an emotion, we essentially go numb to that core emotion. So we can feel very much in denial of our fear of death and therefore have the conscious sense like I am fearless of death, even though that might not be true for us. And then, of course, someone might legitimately not have a fear of death and say the same words. And I'm curious for you guys. Welcome to my show. I'm glad you could be a guest. So my first question for each of you, I'm curious for both of you, do you have an active, ongoing sense of fearing death?
For me, yes. Sorry, I'm obviously I'm taking the first to answer because that's what French do. They always don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had huge anxiety of death since age 3, actually. That was something that was present in me, and that drive my choices. And what you just described is filtering what is important, making the right decision, because eating this plate, to the fullest, that was because of this fear that was present in me. Before Keith answer your question, I had another question for you. Is, do you own a gun now because of protection? Because this is what you need to self-defense, something like that.
No. But on that note, I'm curious. Did you see the gun control video I put out maybe a month ago at this point?
I'm not sure actually on this one. No,
okay, well, you would know it if you saw it. It's a video. It's the title of it is Gun Control. But anyway, in that video, I had it was a prop gun for like movies acting, but it sounded like a real gun because it's made out of metal, and I'm sitting there like an ignorant, American gun owner. Not all Americans who own guns are ignorant.
For fuck's sake, but you have another death threats now coming to your way.
Check your butt hurt at the door
Disclaimer.
if you own a gun. But anyway, I own a replica gun, but man, yeah, I don't like guns. I don't want to own one. I don't want them around me. The death threats here, I stayed inside for 4 days. So instead of, I don't want to kill anybody. Like I was on the phone with a friend of mine, letting him know what's going on, and it's like, yeah, I don't think anything would happen, but the fear, the imagination of fear tends to imagine not what is likely to happen, but like worst case scenario. So I was telling him, I've been confronted on the streets, not physically, just verbally, and he said, yeah, man, I don't want you to, get beat up or anything. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a terrible fighter. And two, if someone did start fighting me, like, I don't think I could fight back, even though like me fighting back would probably do nothing because I'm a terrible fighter. The idea of hurting someone else, even if they're trying to hurt me, like, I don't like that idea, let alone hitting them, let alone shooting them. But of course, I don't know, someone started throwing swings at me, there might be something primal evoked where the tiger comes out of the cage.
Maybe this is another career that you'll discover, just like MMA fighter, but spiritual at the same time, maybe. Sorry, you just took too much, because you just took like Keith's time about his relationship with death, he is fearing death.
He's been expressing his fear, his answer to the question through his interpretive dance of silence. So Keith, if you're ready to get over your denial, do you fear death?
Oh, the denial thing, I definitely had the strong denial for a long time. But it used to pop up. I think any time I got sick, I thought I was going to die, and I was terrified. I can get memories going back to when I was quite young, and it was just, I don't know why, it was just the idea of, there was this concept of it, but I think as soon as I was better again, I would push it down as far as I could and not think about it. Since we've started doing this, since I started working on this project with Olivier, it's that fear's come up loads. At the start of it, it was just like it shook me up completely, and just to constantly thinking about it and sort of facing it. But I'm sort of easing into it now, to the point now where I can look at it a bit differently in the positive reminder about if I'm going to question myself, am I going to do something? And it is a case of, well, I'm going to be dead soon. and just it's soon is potentially. I could have already lived more than half my life, so it is soon in terms of actual years when you think about it. So at the moment I find I go up and down. So there might be times when I might have a period where it hits me, and it does scare me. It's what does it mean? Am I ready? But I'm definitely more conscious about it, and I think I'm getting more comfortable even with the fear when it comes up, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm not frightened of the fear as much anymore. So now it's just what does it actually mean? And that sounded like a load of babble. I have no idea what I just said.
I think it was good. And Olivier doesn't know what you just said either because it was in English. And I'm curious for you guys, do you think the goal is the goal to eliminate the fear of death, or is the goal to more just become a more active partner with your fear of death? Like, what's the ultimate goal?
Come on, man! You're the ultimate spiritual guy. You should have the answer to this. Actually,
I'm wanting to humble myself.
Yeah, at my level,
pretend like I don't know the answer, so we feel like we relate better.
I'm just going to answer that. For me, I think it's making the fear work for us in a more life-affirming way, as opposed to, I think, an unchecked or an unacknowledged fear. It's still there, but what it does is it drives us and motivates us to do things which I don't necessarily think are life-affirming. So, for example, the studies that have been done by Sheldon Solomon and his team, for example, if it's unconscious fear of death, then it's likely to make us more materialistic. So we're more likely maybe to chase those things, and we chase things that are going to numb rather than chase things that are going to, as I said, be more life-affirming and more present moment. And so for me, it's not about removing the fear, but it's about utilizing it in a positive way.
And not to make money when you say positive way.
I'd always to make money.
Yeah, that's the goal for everything.
Making money.
It seems to me that what you just described before, this dark side, we try to cast that away, this darkness, and everything that you can see is this, like, everything is fine, everything is perfect, this Facebook, these Instagrams, let's try to have the best post, just like you have, like the best pictures, the best abs that you just have as well, that you show constantly, this kind of things. And I think if we remove the darkness, as you just mentioned, there's something which is missing. By not going to the darkness, we're not living fully. It sounds a bit weird, I guess, but I'm French, so I have an excuse for that.
I love that. I think I find the human psyche, the human heart fascinating. One of the reasons why it's fascinating to me is, like, it's largely a mystery. Like, we might have our delusional senses of certainty about how it works, but I think there's far more that we don't know compared to what we do know. And what we do know is probably delusional at best. And one of the things that fascinates me about our human heart and psyche is how our fear of the fear of death limits us in our life, whether it's limiting us on becoming much more emotionally vulnerable and intimate with a partner, whether it's I'm not going to start this new business because I'm scared, or I'm not going to do this adventure because I'm scared, or I'm not going to say what's on my mind because I'm scared. I think ultimately when we're scared, we know that when we live in, like, sort of the Western societies, 2 decimal points, like abundance. We're going
abundance, like significant.
99.9. So 99.9% of what we're afraid of in this life, if we live in a Western culture, isn't going to kill us.
Yeah.
Though when we have a fear response, it's the same fear response that goes off when our life is actually in danger. The fears, the hormonal reactions, it's the same thing when our life is in danger. It might just be a more intense hormonal release, more of the hormones. if someone has a gun to our head. So I find one of the things that really limits people from stepping into the discomfort that is always necessary in order to have more meaning and growth and expansion learning in our life is we fear our emotions. Which the fear is always fear of death, ultimately, when you do the math. So I do believe when we can become willing to feel scared to death about something, but do that something anyway, it works for us. I think if any of us look at who inspires us the most, whether you know them personally or they're just like an icon in the media to you, I guarantee that is someone who is willing to do things that makes them scared to death. Not do things that will kill them, but not 0.1%.
That's more sort of Darwin Awards territory, isn't it?
But not the 0.1% of the things that will actually kill you. But they're willing to do the things that scare them to death. They take the action anyway. They have the warrior mindset and heart set that says, I'm scared to death, but I'm taking action anyway. The real warrior, in my opinion, is he or she who feels the fear. But they take action anyway. It's not the fearless warrior. That's a sociopath. Or that's a warrior who isn't a warrior. They're just in the safety pen of their comfort zone. So I do believe there's so much richness that can come into our lives when we're willing to do the things that scare us to death, which means we have to feel those uncomfortable feelings, the discomfort, like the creepy stuff on our arms, the fear. And then, of course, here's the hardest part, the stories that our imagination comes up with to justify why avoiding doing the thing that will evoke emotions that scare us to death is a good thing.
I think spirituality sort of looks at death a little bit, I think, like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So So I don't know if you can just like expand on that. If you're in your spirituality practice, there's something that you can relate to.
Yeah, now this might be a stretch, but it also is probably not a stretch. I think death and spirituality are, dare I say, the same freaking thing. Just two different words. To me, spirituality is embracing the mystery, period. To me, death is a mystery. In fact, one of my great mentors, a beautiful man named John McMullen, he has said, life is a brief pause between two mysteries. And I love that. Like, where do we come from before life, this life? Where do we go after this life? I don't know. Is it the same place? Do we go anywhere? Did we come from anywhere? Is it just biochemical reactions? I don't know. I've got opinions that are nothing more than human-based opinions. But to me, true spirituality has nothing to do with reaffirming our senses of certainty and the familiar in this life, but it's just the opposite. It's actively embracing the mystery of life. And when I say life, I mean life as well as us. We are life as well. So embracing the mysteries of life and ourselves. And man, what is more mysterious than death? And I think when we talk about the concept of death, it's a very direct way of interfacing with the mystery. Like, it is very mysterious. It's a very practical way to connect with the realm of the mysterious. And I think when we're talking more in the spiritual vocabulary, I think it can be harder to get practical with engaging with mystery because there's so many abstract, light, fluffy terms that don't really evoke the mysterious emotions in us. Now, there's a saying, I don't know who the hell said it, but it was someone other than me, that says, life isn't a question to be answered. It's not a riddle to be solved. It's a mystery to be experienced. And I think out of true respect for a mystery, I would say, dear mystery, I can't comprehend you. I can't solve you. I can't answer the question that you are, but I can experience you. my experience isn't going to allow me to comprehend you. So dare I say spirituality and death are the same thing, at least one look at it. It's a mystery to be experienced. And I think sometimes when we try to answer the question, it's almost disrespectful to the mystery. It's trying to make the mystery a non-mystery. It's trying to take something, a mystery the size of the ocean, and fit it in a glass that we can comprehend. But I think true respect says, yeah, you're a mystery, and you're always going to be a mystery. My job is to deal with my feelings that come up, and that incomprehensible mystery that is you. And I think it's human nature to fear anything that we don't comprehend, that we don't understand, because it makes us feel like we're not in control. And when we're not in control, that evokes our reptilian brain to feel some level of threat for our life. We want to be in control so we can feel like we're going to survive. But I don't think the purpose of our life is to survive our life. I think the purpose of our life is to live our freaking life. And I don't think we're actually living our life unless we're actively engaged with the mystery of life. So in other words, getting outside of our delusional freaking stories that just pacify ourselves about who we are and what life is to us. It's like whatever we think it is, can we acknowledge, okay, that's our sense of certainty? Can we go beyond that into the waters of the mystery and get curious? Rather than rigidly certain.
Wow. Fucking hell, man. At the beginning, the objective was to solve death. I think you just did,
Boom.
Boom, done.
Then should we make an app and become billionaires? Because I feel like we can, if we have solved death, it's not my opinion, we did.
We did.
If you say so, then let's make an app, bro.
Okay.
Here it is. Here's it. An app that will tell you when you die. So it's like monitoring your pulse or something. Like no other app will inform you when you're dead.
That's so brilliant, actually. Yeah, let's do that. And it's plugged and it monitors your blood and your pressure and everything. And then you have like a beep and to say you have only 2 hours left. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day. Cool.
Don't sweat the small stuff for the next 2 hours. Enjoy.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Again, please support the show by signing up at deathhangout.com or clicking on the subscribe button on your screen.